Welcome back to The Explainer. So today, we're diving into something absolutely fascinating. We're taking a really profound look at an ancient text that, believe it or not, maps out the exact life cycle of how institutions rise, how they experience moral decay, and how they ultimately collapse. Specifically, we're looking at a comprehensive commentary on Surah Bani Israel. And what's wild about this is that it doesn't just offer your standard spiritual guidance. It's literally a rigorous historical case study on why societies and organizations succeed and why they fail. Let's get right into it.
Now, you might be asking yourself, how exactly does an ancient text blueprint the rise and fall of civilizations? It's a great question, right? Because as busy professionals, we're usually hunting through modern business books for strategies on longevity. But the source material we're unpacking today actually bridges the gap between historical scripture and modern corporate strategy. It lays out a definitive, no-nonsense cause and effect relationship between ethical leadership and sustainable success.
Here's our roadmap for today. We're going to start with the pre-migration summit, then move into the night journey. From there, we'll look at history's cautionary tale, break down a timeless ethical manifesto, and finally, wrap up with some crucial lessons for professionals.
All right, Section 1, the pre-migration summit. Let's set the scene here. So picture this. We're in Mecca, and this revelation drops during a time of immense, crushing pressure and persecution for the early Muslim community. We're talking exactly 1 year before their massive migration to Medina. You can think of this catalyst moment almost like a highly exclusive, top-tier executive summit right before the launch of a massive new enterprise. This community was about to pivot from being a marginalized group into an actual governing body running a brand new society. Basically, they desperately needed a foundational manifesto, a solid set of operational bylaws before they took the reins of power. Moving on to Section 2, the night journey, a truly visionary experience.
Just before this huge societal launch was the Miraj, or the night journey. The commentary describes this as a profound metaphysical journey from the sacred mosque in Mecca over to the farthest mosque in Jerusalem, and then upward into the heavens. But look at this from a leadership perspective. The source frames this as the ultimate visionary experience. The leadership was essentially being prepped with this boundless cosmic perspective before taking on some seriously heavy earthly responsibilities. Because think about it, before you can build a lasting institution on Earth, you need a vision that transcends immediate physical limits, right? It was a cosmic orientation right before a massive terrestrial expansion.
Okay, Section 3, History's Cautionary Tale. Time for a case study. Now we're pivoting from that preparatory vision into a core historical case study. Here we're seeing the geographical distribution of the 12 tribes of the Israelites in Palestine. So we are shifting from abstract theology straight into concrete, physical history. The text uses the Israelites as the primary case study for this new community. It's basically saying, hey, look closely at the people who were handed power and territory before you. By anchoring the narrative in real geography, the source is really driving home the real-world consequences of leadership, resource management, and ethical compliance. You can really think of this timeline as the corporate life cycle of an entire empire. We kick off with Era 1, their initial rise and settlement. Then comes Era 2, the golden age of prophets David and Solomon. This is their peak prosperity, their ultimate political unity. But then we hit Era 3, widespread moral decay. The source meticulously details how that initial divine favor and success bred hubris, and that hubris led to widespread corruption. This systemic decay inevitably triggered a total collapse, marked by Era 4, the first destruction by the Babylonians, and eventually Era 5, the second destruction by the Romans. It is a stark, unavoidable reminder that past success absolutely does not guarantee future survival if you abandon your core values. To give you an idea of the sheer scale of this decay, the commentary actually cites some incredibly striking warnings from biblical prophets. Take this quote from the book of Isaiah: "A sinful nation, a people laden with iniquity, a seed of evildoers." Wow. The source uses these historical records to highlight the strict cause and effect reality of civilizations. Listen, ethical breaches, corruption, social injustice, these aren't just minor PR missteps. They guarantee systemic failure. The text is using this aggressive historical audit as a massive red flag for the new community in Medina, warning them, do not repeat these catastrophic mistakes. Which brings us to Section 4, a timeless ethical manifesto, the blueprint for prevention. So if those previous historical examples were the diagnosis of failure, the text steps up here to offer the cure, a literal blueprint for prevention. First up, acknowledge one ultimate authority, the Creator. That grounds the entire society in a shared moral absolute. From there, it immediately bridges right into the social fabric. Honor and serve parents in their old age, fulfill the rights of your kindred and the destitute, protect the vulnerable, uphold strict justice, and keep your promises. And let's be clear, the source doesn't present these as just nice, warm and fuzzy spiritual ideals. No, these are the foundational bylaws of a sustainable, enduring society. Because if an organization or an entire society fails to protect its most vulnerable and fails to uphold justice, it's just going to rot from the inside out.
Finally, let's look at Section 5, Lessons for Professionals, bringing it into the modern workspace. Bringing all this ancient wisdom directly into our modern day-to-day, the text offers this brilliant visual analogy about financial ethics. On the left side, we have tying your hand to your neck. This is a striking metaphor for extreme miserliness and hoarding. But then, on the right, we have opening it completely, which represents reckless extravagance and thoughtless spending. What the source is strongly advocating for here is the middle path of moderation. Whether you're managing a household budget, trying to stretch a startup runway, or overseeing a massive corporate treasury, hitting that balance is absolutely the optimal economic strategy for long-term survival.
Now, to pull this off, you need a fundamental shift in perspective. You have to maintain what we can call the ultimate ledger. The commentary points out the stark contrast between people who are obsessed with immediate, fleeting gains versus those who are striving for lasting, eternal outcomes. The text is literally warning us against sacrificing long-term sustainable impact just to grab some quick, short-term profits. It frames the afterlife as essentially the ultimate audit of our actions. Think about it. You might be able to fudge the numbers on a quarterly report today, but there's no escaping the final audit of your ethical conduct and how you actually treated people along the way. To wrap up our explainer today, I really want to leave you with a provocative question based on everything we've just unpacked. In your own professional journey, are you optimizing for a short-term gain, or are you actively building a sustainable ethical legacy? The blueprint of rise and fall is right there, clearly documented in history. The life cycle of literally any great endeavor hinges on accountability, justice, and balancing what we want right now with our ultimate responsibilities. Keep these ancient principles in mind as you go out and build your own legacy. Thanks so much for joining me today, and keep learning.